Christian Urrutia joins us this morning. Thanks for coming in, Christian.
Yeah, Adam, thank you for having me here.
So, you are newly endorsed by Our Revolution, which is the organization that sort of launched out of the 2016 Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, trying to carry that momentum forward for progressive change. Further proof that if there is such a thing as the progressive establishment, like a lot of these top progressive organizations have picked you as their guy. But we see you and the other progressives in this race really chopping up a small amount of support at the bottom of the polls. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, look, I think this is what's going on. One is I'm really proud to get this endorsement, and it is clear progressive organizations, when they measure up the candidates, they like what they see with me. This is Our Revolution, the Progressive House Caucus at the state, the New Hampshire Youth Movement, 350 New Hampshire Action have all endorsed my campaign because they know we're the campaign that can actually win this race and carry forward progressive change. What we're seeing in the polls, the leading candidate right now, undecided. More than 50% of the electorate is undecided, and then another 10 to 20% highly persuadable. What we're seeing right now is folks are measuring the candidates. They're well aware of Stephanie Shaheen. They're well aware of Maura Sullivan, and they're saying, who else is next? We think we're primed to be that choice. We have gotten the support of great organizations like Our Revolution for a reason, and we're going to carry our message forward over the next month.
Statistically, you've got to get around Sullivan and Shaheen there in the top 1-2. What is the contrast between you and those two?
Yeah, look, I think there's major differences between us. A few clear ones. I'm a Medicare for All candidate. They're not. I think we should impeach President Trump. They haven't gone there yet, right? And they haven't said that. I think we should dismantle and replace ICE. They want to save ICE. They think ICE is redeemable. There's also on the Massey Amendment, which came up. So what is the Massey Amendment, right? It's about cutting off our taxpayer dollars from going to Israel. Maura Sullivan has not taken a position yet. I would have voted for the Massey Amendment. I don't think we should be sending our taxpayer dollars to Israel when they have health care and we don't, when there's a genocide in Gaza. I have to note, Maura is supported by the Democratic Majority for Israel, an AIPAC-aligned PAC. The position of Democratic Majority for Israel is to oppose that legislation. And so I think it's really important that ultimately the candidates lay out exactly what they were going to do if they go to Congress, the votes that they would take. I'm really clear on the vote that I would take. And look, the fact that she has this endorsement, I think the inference is she would have voted against the Massey Amendment. And I think there's a lot of voters out there that's an important issue for them.
As a progressive, where do you draw the line between opposition to Israel, which can be very firm and very strong, and you find yourself shoulder to shoulder with some people who are making arguments that go beyond that bleed into anti-Semitism? Yeah. How do you keep those two things separate? Because it seems like, at least in the eyes of a lot of voters, they're conflating this problem for a lot of progressives right now.
Yeah, so let me tell you the way I look at it. And look, I'm a military officer that served in the Pentagon, and I think about human rights. I think about international law, and I think about the standards that I would apply to the United States in its conduct in hostilities, and the outrage I would have if the United States was engaging in conduct akin to what's happened in Gaza. I think we can also say, and we shouldn't be caught between these, sense that, you can't be critical of Israel because you might be anti-Semitic, or if you're critical of Israel, you can't acknowledge some basic truths. And one of them is you can say Hamas is a horrific organization. You can also say there's an anti-Semitism problem in America right now, and we have to take it seriously. But we have to hold Israel to some basic standards, and this is exactly why I've been so critical of Netanyahu and Israel.
This is a surge moment right now for democratic socialists around the country. We see these campaigns that have caught fire. Sometimes, like in Wisconsin right now, that's one where people are like, what the heck's going on? So are you a democratic socialist?
Look, I'm a progressive. I don't get too bogged down in the details of these labels. These labels mean different things to different people. This is what I care about: fixing our problems in America. Because right now, this economy is rigged. Our political system is rigged. There's rampant corruption. People can't afford their health care. They can't afford their child care. They can't afford houses. Wages don't pay enough. We need new leaders that are not part of the establishment to come in and shake things up. And if someone wants to say I'm a progressive, great. They want to say I'm outside of the establishment, great. I'm independent-minded, great. They want to say I have some socialist ideas, I'm okay with that too. Don't really care. I care about fixing people's problems.
And yet, we saw one of your competitors, Heath Howard, was here, and I asked him, he said, yes, I'm a democratic socialist, but I only tell voters if they ask me. Shouldn't people be more upfront about this as a candidate if you have some socialist
I think that's a pretty bizarre response. I'm very upfront, maybe too upfront, frankly, and direct with folks. You will always hear from me exactly what I think we need to do and where I stand. And my North Star, fixing people's problems, day-to-day life, and taking on the corrupt establishment of Washington, Trump, and what is really afflicting a lot of Americans, which is the billionaire class.
In advancing the progressive agenda and, universal child care, debt-free college, these are ideas that it seems like a lot of people could start to get on board with. But then other democratic socialists or progressives start talking about things like prison abolition and, the idea potentially of defunding the police, or at least not even saying what you're going to do with police. That sounds kind of crazy to most voters. Do you want to separate these two things, or is this all comes as one package?
I think there's an economic argument of what we need to be doing in our country right now, in the sense that people say, hey, this economy isn't working for us and we need something different. And this is where I focus, and I think to the extent there's overlap, there's overlap. And again, it's Medicare for all, universal child care, higher wages, taxing the billionaires. Then there's these things about, prison abolition. I'm not for that. Defund the police. I'm not for that. Like, those I think are not reasonable proposals.
We were talking a little bit about this on your campaign ruck through Manchester, the idea of health care at the VA and having that as a model for something bigger that you might want to achieve through Medicare for all. The problems, though, at the VA, these are, cherished citizens who've given a lot for their country, and sometimes they don't get the best. Doesn't that stand in the way of a little bit of the argument of more expanded government health care?
Well, let me tell you, again, come back. As someone that serves in the military, I think it's a sacred obligation that we have. And the problem we have is we're not funding the VA. The Trump administration is cutting the VA budget right now. Look, you got to fund things adequately to get good results. When we look at our healthcare system, we by far pay the most of any country on healthcare, and our outcomes are worse, by far. And the reason is because of the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance companies that are gouging American taxpayers and American consumers. And this is why I strongly believe in Medicare for all. Every other peer country has figured it out, and it's been aligned with a kind of Medicare for all type system, a universal health care system. I would support that. I think it's the cleanest, clearest way to get everyone in this country the health care they need.
What is the best way to raise wages for the most number of Americans without triggering more inflation?
Yeah, well, first is actually having a minimum wage that's reflective of the living wage. Right now, the minimum wage hasn't gone up since 2009. It's $7.25 an hour. You can't live on those. Those are poverty wages. It's unacceptable. So it is ultimately doing that. It's also for small businesses having offsetting tax cuts and exemptions to allow them to brace for the impact that would come with it. That would help affect the inflation question. But let's face it, a big driver of inflation, the war in Iran, which I'm opposed to, the tariff policy, which I'm opposed to as well. My wife owns a small business. She's been on the front lines of being afflicted by this. Those are driving significant amounts of inflation. And it's also the fact that this administration hasn't been able to curb the cost of debt for the federal government and the interest rates that are going up.
It's not a big issue, but it's kind of an issue near and dear to New Hampshire. The first in the nation primary. We just saw the DNC move against this again. What's your reaction to what's going on there from those folks in Washington?
Yeah, look, it just shows you how out of touch the establishment is and how it's not really helping the people of New Hampshire and the Democratic Party base. New Hampshire has a rich history of doing an incredible job in helping to winnow down the field and give some folks that maybe are not in the top 1, 2, or 3 a chance to succeed. That's the story of Bernie Sanders in 2016. He began in single digits, ended up getting 60% of the vote here, and the rest is history, right? I think this is a huge failure by the DNC and a huge failure by the establishment.
The DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee made this explicitly about race, essentially, couching this in terms that made it sound like Latinos and candidates like you just don't exist here.
Yeah, well, they're wrong, right? I'm proof of it. You have a Latino running for Congress in New Hampshire. But look, this is the thing. This is such a DC thing to just slice and dice the electorate based upon 1 or 2 factors. New Hampshire does have a rich history of deep political engagement. We should be fostering that, not punishing it.
All right, Christian Urrutia, thank you for joining us on Close Up, and we'll see you very soon for some debates.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. I really appreciate it, Adam.
See you out there.